This time around I'm going to show you a technique that I first saw. I think it was in an issue of Before and After magazine. I thought it was a really cool idea. I'm sort of expanding on their idea a little bit, but it's basically to use the Posterize command. I'm going to start off by duplicating the background layer, press Command or Control J to do that. Now we could simply go under Adjustments and choose Posterize, and that would work okay. Let's bring this in here. But the problem with Posterize is it tends to be very pixelized, and just, I mean, that you might like that look, but what Before and After magazine suggested, and I thought it was a great idea, was to start off using some form of blur, like a Gaussian blur, for example. And again, this is where the experimentation comes in. I'll show you first the basic idea. I'm just going to do a little bit of a blur, something like that, and then go back and do the Posterize command. Now we're trying to deliberately go for a very bizarre kind of, impact view, not something that's supposed to look like a painting or something. I mean, if we put the Posterize levels up really high, then you don't even see anything. So the whole point of this is to be really low. Now you can also use the arrow keys to go up or down. So even there, that's starting to look almost too realistic. We're trying to go for that kind of dramatic, cartoony, hand-drawn look, whatever you like. Click OK, and this is where the experimentation begins. You could, of course, leave it like that. We could duplicate it again and do another blur, and then lower the opacity a little bit, perhaps. Or let's take away that copy, and we could simply play with opacity or blend mode. So if we lower the opacity to let the original photo show through, that changes the impact. Or it could be a matter of using the blend modes. Remember, we've talked about this before. In blend modes, you always have the option, as long as the move tool is selected, of using Shift plus to just basically scroll through the different blend modes and see if there's something that you like. Okay. Lots of different possibilities. Here's another image, same idea. We'll duplicate this one. This time I'm going to do something a little different. I'm still going to do the blur command. I'm going to press Command Option or Control Alt F, because I know that the Gaussian blur is the last one that I did. But I'm going to put a much higher blur amount. Let's make this layers palette just a hair bigger. Okay, so I've got the very high blur, but now we're going to lower the opacity, and that's going to make just a much softer blur than we had before. So there's still a bit of a Gaussian blur, but it's much sort of a softer, dreamy focus like we've done in previous movies. Now we're going to add a new layer on top. I'm going to press Command Option Shift or Control Alt Shift E. Command Option Shift, Control Alt Shift E. And that does what's called Stamp Visible, some call it Merge Visible, but it basically creates a new layer copy, which is the two of these together. That allows me to be able to now work on that kind of composite view. So now I go back to our Posterize command, and you'll see because we have a softer kind of focus thing, we get quite a different look. Okay, just playing with different settings, and it tends to work well when, like, both of these images had a fairly solid background, but doesn't have to be. And the real point of any technique like this one, of course, is to experiment and try things. But the idea of doing a very slight Gaussian blur right up to a very high Gaussian blur and then doing Posterize just opens up yet another bunch of possibilities. As you know by now, one of the things I love about these kind of techniques in Photoshop is when you experiment, you just never know the results you'll get. I'm Dave Cross. See you next time.